Hi, everybody. Welcome to WCA Extra. This is our live desk streaming show kicking off just on 9:17 now. We're looping in Calvin Cutler here just for a sec, talking about a proposed move in Plainfield to move their downtown. Calvin, first of all, thanks for hopping on this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, John.
Yeah, and diving right into it, I guess my first question is, and not to, this is, be too blunt about it, but how is this all really going to work? You know what I mean? We have a downtown which is very very close, very flood prone, has been the last couple of years. So how are they going to try to make this work?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question, and it is a huge undertaking from the
Yeah,
community of Plainfield. And I just wanted to just back up just a second. I mean, in terms of the damage that we saw in Plainfield, I mean, there's 28 homes right now
yeah,
that are waiting for federal FEMA buyouts, but there was still a lot of damage. In fact, actually, proportionally to the housing stock in town to what was damaged, FEMA or Plainfield actually had some of the highest rates of destruction from Tropical Storm Beryl here in Vermont. So we're now 7 months out from the flooding, and the community is really starting this conversation about what can we do to not just rebuild, but to get ahead and try to re-engineer what our community will look like in a flood prone time. And so really the idea here, and we're going to see a bit of this on town meeting day, but it's a multi-year proposal, is essentially the idea is to vote on a $2.5 million bond for water, sewer, road infrastructure on a 23-acre plot of land, which technically is in the designated downtown, but
yeah,
it's up above on East Hill Road,
yeah,
sort of when you're on the way out of town, past Positive Pie and where the co-op used to be. And the idea is that the community would buy out or buy uh, excuse me, they would be able to essentially let people use their FEMA buyout money
yeah,
to buy small plots of land and then in theory build their own, maybe a tiny home or a small cabin or some sort of housing on that plot of land. So the idea being that they'd be able to keep people in town and to try to keep their grand list, because as of right now, 28 homes for a federal buyout, that is going to take a pretty big chunk of tax revenue for services, for
yeah.
fire, for water and sewer. And because those 28 homes are going to be no longer on the market paying taxes, that raises taxes
Yeah.
for everybody else. So that's sort of what this is really all aimed at. But there's a lot of steps to get there.
And that kind of leads to my next point too. I mean, you're almost weighing that versus, hey, you need to build a new home now on a new plot of land, and especially given the cost of are they buy is this at all, is this market price for this land, or is it, what do you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, we don't know exactly like what people will be paying for
Yeah,
individual slices of the land. We don't know how it's going to be sliced up, or how many people actually will take the town up
yeah,
on this proposal. As I said, it's still a few years out here, but this is sort of the framework that they're introducing. And they when they close their eyes and they try to envision what it will look like. I mean, there was the I believe it was the East Callis or Callis General Store that opened up that has retail, like a store and offices on the first floor, but then there's housing like on the second or third
yeah,
floors. And so that's sort of what they're trying to envision. This is more of a walkable sort of new, not necessarily a city
yeah.
center,
Mixed
because Plainfield, yeah, mixed
mixed
use
use, I
development.
guess. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So that's sort of the vision here. But I mean, this is all really going to come on town meeting day. They're not actually voting on the bond on town meeting day, but they're voting to create a special reserve fund, which for this bond, which is sort of the precursor. It's basically they're using
yeah.
that vote as a way to sort of gauge public interest in the project. So yeah, lots of steps to go here, but it really is an interesting one because as the historical development patterns that we've inherited are along rivers and streams, which we've used for energy, for transportation, for waste
Yeah.
disposal. I mean, all of I don't want to say all, but many of our Vermont communities are along waterways. But as we know,
Well, that's
climate change is driving
yeah.
extreme weather and flood risk.
Well, that also kind of goes into my last point. Some people, say, "Oh, it has a rich history in Plainfield." Is there any kind of that where any of those thoughts where they say, "Hey, we don't want to move. We want to stay put." Is that even really feasible?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting question because I mean there is the debate of do you buy out the homes and
Yeah.
destroy it and turn the area right along the Great Brook into more of a floodplain, and do
Yeah.
you sort of make it not prohibit development there, or do you say, hey, maybe we should revisit some of these structures? Can we raise up homes? Can we fill in our basements? Are there ways to make these structures more flood resilient? And so I think there's multiple ways that multiple avenues that people can take here in terms of flood resiliency and what that looks like. The community, at least some in the community, the steering committee that they've been
Yeah.
working on, they would like to buy out those homes, restore the floodplain, and move that development pattern up the hill.
Yeah.
But each community is sort of taking on flood resiliency and rebuilding, at it with sort of whatever reflects the values and sort of the priority of that committee or community, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess my last point here is that you and I talked a little bit before this as well. How does this tie into initiative at the State House, right now to bolster some more housing?
Yeah, I mean it's a really interesting test case because there's the whole redevelop above the floodplain, making our communities more resilient, but also the question about the cost for municipalities to build out infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, etc.
Yeah.
for this housing to help bring down the cost for developers or for people that want to build. And what's interesting about this is, as I mentioned, if and when the vote eventually comes up, maybe next year, maybe the year after, it's going to be about $2.5 million that the taxpayers are going to have to pay. But there is an initiative that is actually in Governor Phil Scott's omnibus housing bill this year. There is also a coalition, the Let's Build Homes Coalition,
Yeah.
which is seeking to really chip away at our housing crisis here. But there's an initiative to utilize the tax breaks or tax increment financing for specific projects. So historically, we've used them for sections of town like the Burlington waterfront or downtown Montpelier, where you can utilize some of these tax breaks to spur and incentivize development, and then the revenue from that development then pays off those taxes. So that's the idea, but they want to use this funding mechanism for individual projects like wastewater treatment plants or
Yeah.
building out sewer lines, that type of thing, because that can really bring down the
Yeah.
cost for development too. And that's sort of the idea. And I think there is some controversy or some mixed feelings, I guess, maybe around utilizing this. Some critics say that it shortchanges the ed fund, but certainly though, I mean it's just this plain field conversation
Yeah.
with the flooding, but also building out infrastructure, really are encapsulating two big themes here at the State House, certainly around housing and what do we do going forward.
No, absolutely. I think they're, as far as the at Plainfield specifically, again, it sounds like there's still a lot of steps, ahead in this proposition as well. And timing day 2 weeks away. So, but Calvin, thanks so much. And I will say, firsthand, Plainfield. I was there over the summer, right afterwards, and there's 5.5 feet of muck in basements. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of devastation
Yeah.
that they're dealing with. So. I
It,
can't imagine a timeline where that is
yeah.
quick. So, but Calvin, thanks so much. We'll show this in a second. We'll just get a good idea of where that's at. But thanks so much for hopping on.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. That was our.
Last summer's floods devastated dozens of homes here in Plainfield and scattered many families to the wind. With an eye on keeping people here in town, the community is considering expanding its downtown village.
We're just really lucky that we didn't decide to come down and check on the basement, because if we had, we'd be dead for sure.
Lauren Geiger recounts when the Great Brook in Plainfield backed up, crashing through her basement windows and inundating her home.
It took 100 volunteers about 2.5 weeks to dig out our basement. They said they estimated there was 100 tons of mud and silt in there.
7 months since Tropical Storm Beryl, the damage is still apparent in town, and 28 homes are waiting on FEMA buyouts, which would be a big hit to the town's grand list and drive up taxes for others. So the town is considering a plan to expand the downtown and invest $2 million in water, sewer, and road infrastructure to a 23-acre plot of private land.
We really want it to be an extension of the current Plainfield Village. We don't want to have it feel isolated.
The aim is to let flood survivors who lost their homes buy a slice of land, build a new home, and stay in town.
We wanted to try to make it possible for them, if they got their FEMA buyouts, to be able to use that money to buy a lot and perhaps build a small house.
For hundreds of years, Plainfield and other towns and cities were built near rivers for electricity, transportation, and garbage disposal. The effort to build on higher ground is part of a larger strategy to make our towns more flood resilient as it becomes more common. Some acknowledging it would change the nature of Plainfield, but they add they can't endure another summer of floods.
We don't want another repeat of this, that's for sure.
Now, the community will weigh in on town meeting day to essentially gauge interest in the project. But even then, any real development at the site is likely years away. Reporting in Plainfield, Calvin Cutler, Channel 3 News.
Yeah, and that was Calvin Cutler talking about Plainfield, a proposition to move their downtown. You can see that whole thing on WCAX.com. And, Peter, you can see, especially from, Calvin's last bit there, still a good dusting of snow out there, and you can hear that wind, too. Really, really a lot these last couple days.
We definitely had those windy conditions yesterday. They started to calm down last night. They're continuing to trend downward here through the day today as well. And for the most part, most of us are going to talk our real feels inching back above that 0-degree mark here. Come later today as well. Show you what we got right now out there. Some of us still below that 0-degree mark. You can see Saranac Lake still coming in at 1 below. Elsewhere, though, generally single digits and lower teens above 0. Take you outside towards Newport. A picture-perfect blue sky day out there. 4 degrees above 0 right now. Winds calm. That meaning the wind chill, not too much of a wind chill factor out there. Still, definitely some cold spots though. Take a look at Saranac Lake. Feels like 15 below. Feels like 12 below right now in Montpelier. Again, the winds gradually continuing to diminish here as we head through the rest of the day today. Come later this afternoon, this evening. Most of us not talking about too much of a breeze out there, and that's going to mean our real field temperatures return back above the 0-degree mark. Here's the view on satellite and radar right now. Just a picture-perfect day out there. Most of us talking blue skies and sunshine, kind of a bluebird day. Again, here's what happens temperature-wise. Again, you'll definitely notice the cold air as you're stepping out for any morning plans. And we're warming up ever so slightly here as we head towards this afternoon. Most of our real feels back above the 0-degree mark. And most of us should probably feel just a touch warmer here for the afternoon hours today. Temperature-wise, well, we are trending upwards here over the next several days. Today we're talking highs in the teens. Tomorrow, Friday, back into the 20s. Up towards the weekend, we're back towards the 30s, mid to upper 30s, potentially maybe even a few lower 40s. the area. We could see a little bit of rain shower activity mixing in here for Sunday and Monday as well. Tuesday, maybe potentially making it to the 40-degree mark. I said it on the air a few times, but if we do make it to the 40-degree mark, that'll be the first time since January 18th, so just over a month ago.
Yeah, not to sound too complainy here, Peter, but wintry mix is one of my least favorite. I hate, when it kind of crosses over.
Yeah.
I
think we're going
think.
to be talking about that icy mix that
Okay.
we all basically don't like.
You said snow and rain.
Snow and rain, I think it's probably some snowflakes and then
Yeah.
some rain showers mixing in from time to time, just because we're pretty warm. You can see 38, 39.
Yeah. Definitely some welcome news our last couple of days. I think, look, given, the temperatures in the wind chill, we talked about the Mount Washington speeds. What was that?
164?
161 or something. We'll have to double check, but
Yeah.
fast
Crazy
regardless.
Yeah.
And
I talked about it during our first hour.
Yeah.
People up there, the weather observers that live up there full time, I think it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Essentially, is what their shifts are. If they have wind gusts sustained at 100 miles per hour, they'll join what they like to call the Centuries Club.
Yeah.
They'll try to traverse the entirety of the weather deck up there against the 100-mile-per-hour winds.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I also can't even imagine that windburn
I know.
chap.
I
You have
know.
to be completely
you are
decked
completely
out. Yeah.
bundled up. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
one of my friends that I went to school with graduated in the meteorology department.
Yeah.
His first job was on
Up
top
there?
of the summit
Wow.
of Washington. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. What's the cat's name, by the way? I know the cat.
Nimbus.
Nimbus.
Yes.
Yes, we are Nimbus fans. If
Absolutely.
Mount Washington is watching here. And just bundle up. Well, that's how I'll end this.
Yeah.
Peter, thanks. It does for us here in Extra, of course. Peter and I, just a couple hours. See
at
us
the
on the noon, and then all of our content, WCAX.com, and our evening shows as well. But until then, just take care and stay warm.